In our first edition of ShadowTalk, CISO Spotlight, Digital Shadows' Chief Information Security Officer, Rick Holland, joins the podcast to discuss his security goals and objectives for 2019. We'll discuss buying new technology, improving processes, how to best manage and empower your colleagues, and, of course with Rick on the show, a little bit of barbecue. All this on today's ShadowTalk. Well, he's a hard man to pin down, but I'm delighted to have Digital Shadows CISO Rick Holland here with me today. Rick, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Raf. It's good to be on.
Yeah, good. So it's January, it's 2019. I thought it would be a good opportunity to hear directly from you as a CISO on what your plans are for this year. What are the big pain points you foresee for the next 12 months? What are the big ticket items that you've got on your agenda? I'm sure we've got a lot of listeners probably in a similar position to you as well. So good for you to share your own insight.
Yeah, it's a good time of the year to do it. I've seen a lot of kind of New Year's resolutions talk with my friends and family, and then you'll also see it on the corporate space. I don't like to call them New Year's resolutions because it means by like February 15th, by Valentine's Day, you're done and you're back to eating all that junk food that you said you were going to stop eating. But I like to kind of think of it more as just a continuation of strategic planning. And so that's what kind of want to talk through today is, you know, what do we have here at Digital Shadows on our plan? How am I trying to set our team up for success, minimize risk, get visibility into risk? That sort of thing is kind of what I want to focus on.
Yeah, and before we focus on specific things, you kind of mentioned it there, the idea of continuous planning. So the first question I had for you is, as a CISO, do you tend to use the traditional business calendar as a way to set your targets, your milestones for the year? Or is it a lot more fluid than that? I mean, to put it another way, do you wait until fourth quarter, beginning of first quarter to set all your plans for the year? Or are you structuring this over a longer term?
No, it's a great question. Actually, we're working on, it's happening all the time, I guess, to answer your question, but we're finalizing our playbook for 2019 right now. So Rich Gold, the director of security engineering, who obviously is a mainstay on our podcasts, he and I are working on our playbook for the entire year. And you have certain things that are going to be there all the time that you know about, right? At the beginning of Q3, we start doing in earnest at a company level our following year planning. I'm presenting to the board in May of this year at the Q2 board meeting that's there. So we have these kind of, you know, gates that we know there's going to be work to be done, but we also don't want to wait for that time. We want to be proactive. So we, you know, from a vendor perspective, we kind of have a dashboard where we're tracking all of our vendors and the customer experience that we have with the vendor, how well that tool works for us year round, so that when renewal comes up, we're ready for that renewal and we can evaluate it. So it really is an ongoing process. One of the things that we did last year, and we always have, look, a lot of things I'm going to talk about today, I think a lot of CISOs you have these ideas that you're going to do all this great things, and then, you know, as soon as you get punched, right, everything kind of, as a boxer, Raf, you will appreciate that. Your plan kind of goes down the tube the first time you get punched in the jaw. But we want to set up a framework. So in our playbook and in our calendar for the year, we have these very significant dates, but then we're also, you know, booking time in the calendar to make sure that we're talking and being proactive about the current state of our program. We're booking times in the third month of a quarter to make sure that we have maximized all of our budget that we have for that quarter, and then moving budget into the following quarter if we need to. So we're doing the best we can with the playbook to build some resiliency into the chaos that everybody that's listening, you know, to the podcast knows, right? And sure, maybe we'll miss some of the meetings that we set up, but at least we've got them set up, and we're going to try to hold ourselves accountable to it. So we set ourselves up for the best success possible, given the chaotic environment that we're all working in.
So putting aside needing to be necessarily flexible and rolling with the punches they come in, what are the big sort of ticket items that you have for your year, the more maybe structured things that you have that you want to put into practice over the next 12 months?
Well, one of them is, you know, as many listeners know, I was a Forrester research analyst for 4.5 years. Actually, my 3-year anniversary is coming up, I think, next week, of being at Digital Shadows. And, you know, I think in 4.5 years, I probably wrote I don't know, 80 pieces of research, something along those lines, of various lengths. But, the thing that's been exciting for me as CISO here at Digital Shadows is putting into practice some of the things that I used to write about. Kind of always felt like a poser, or a little bit. I blogged about this in the past as well. I was writing to CISOs, but I had never been a CISO. Well, now I'm actually implementing some of the things that I used to write about. And one of the main research themes and topics that I would always talk about when I was at Forrester was this concept of expense and depth. Everybody knows about defense in depth, right? Your multi-layered approach to security, lots of different controls and countermeasures in place to try to build resiliency. At Forrester, I really called that expense in depth. And expense in depth is almost just buying more stuff, not maximizing that stuff, and you have this really complicated environment. So my top priority for myself and for Rich is maximizing all of our existing investment, making sure that anything that we have put money into, any capability that comes with a tool or a service that we have, we're taking advantage of so that we're not wasting our money. Just like everyone out here listening, we want to be good stewards to the resources that we have. We want to be able to get visibility into risk. So really, I just want to avoid expense and depth and maximize all of the investment that we can.
Yeah, I suppose, I don't know if this expression translates over to the US. In the UK, we have the expression, all the gear, no idea. So I suppose it's similar to buying as much software, as much hardware as you can, which looks great superficially, but is it actually helping you? And yeah, you're just accumulating a lot of costs by doing that as well.
It very much so. Another joke that a lot of people will get is like, although it's less and less the case these days, is, you go into a data center and you have racks and stacks of blinking lights that you don't know what they do. You're not taking advantage of whatever that appliance is. Now, in a world where much more infrastructure as a service, SaaS as a service, that data center has moved to the cloud, but it's the same thing. Do you have a bunch of SaaS services that you're not taking advantage of? Do you have some kind of email security service, but you're not using the data loss protection capabilities that you're paying for on it? So yeah, that definitely resonates across the pond, Raf. One of the things that kind of fall into that anti-expense and depth strategy that we're talking about, to use another kind of buzzword, is kind of that eating your own dog food, which as a concept is terrible. I'd rather have it something like eat my own barbecue. That's something that I can get behind a little bit more. But I think about what we do at Digital Shadows, and I think about Searchlight is taking advantage of that. Searchlight has been a tremendous tool for us from an internal security perspective, in brand protection. Typo squats is a huge one that we're getting, lots of websites that are parked, websites that have MX records similar to our brand. They're trying to do phishing. So a really, really key thing for us is to continue and do even more with our own service. So eating our own barbecue, essentially, because I'm done saying eating your own dog food. But yeah, our goal is to eat our own barbecue and take advantage of Searchlight, and where we don't have integrations into our security stack today. In fact, I was talking to Rich about this morning with some API stuff that we're working on, things that we want to prove out internally. We can pitch over to product and get it on the roadmap and say, hey, let's do this integration with this tool that we have in our stack that currently isn't in the portfolio of integrations that we have available for our customers. So we really just want to take advantage. I'm not having to pay any money for Searchlight, so let's make sure we can maximize it to the greatest extent.
If there's one thing I could have been sure of, is that you would have put a barbecue reference into the talk today.
We should make that also a goal for all podcasts in 2019, is somehow work smoked meat. Or I also do vegetables. So my wife doesn't eat much meat, so we also do vegetables as well. So yeah, that'll also be a personal development goal, is to work barbecue into every talk for 2019.
I don't think we'll struggle with that one. So you might not want to mention specific services or software, but are there any specific areas where you do want to focus investment, or you think maybe a lot of organizations haven't until now been focusing enough?
Yeah, it's a good question. Rich and I were talking about this, and I made the comment to him, we could literally buy no new technology or no new services in 2019. And this goes back to the expense and depth. A lot of the investment that we made in 2017, in 2017 and in 2018, we could just improve that investment. Now, there's stuff I've built into the budget that we want to do. Generally I'll speak about some areas of focuses that we have. Won't go into specific products, but one of them is just application security. What more can we do from an AppSec perspective, and getting into the software development life cycle from a DevOps perspective, working with our devs, getting them to buy into security controls, baking that security control in. I mean, this idea, and we've moved past this, of doing a scan before a piece of software launches. It's like the 90s called they want their process back. So that's something that we're continually improving on here at Digital Shadows, and I know everyone else that's in a DevOps world is really trying to work on as well. So I think that application security is really, really key. DevOps is really, really key. Another one in general, and I know this is a pain point when I go out and talk to our customers, when I talk to prospects, when I talk to CISO friends of mine, is just third-party risk management. That's a huge one. And in one area that we have to focus on is all the questionnaires that come in from Digital Shadows customers, wanting us to be able to attest to our maturity. So that's one component. And then me doing the same thing for us. We're a very cloud first kind of company. I mean, we are basically cloud native. Our service is cloud native as well. So for us, lots of SaaS applications from the different lines of business that we have, making sure that we're understanding the risk, critically understanding the data. Digital Shadows has offices from Singapore to Europe to the US. We have teams in Australia, in Japan. We're across the globe. So that's really, really a key component for me, is understanding the data. And in the GDPR world, or in other parts of the world where there's other types of compliance, just getting a handle on that. That's a nonstop journey. In fact, if there's any CISOs that are listening, or security leaders that are listening, that want to come on the podcast and talk about third-party risk management, I think that's one that we could dig into and do a whole session on as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think we'd be really keen to have other voices in the space, can share learnings, can even debate different things as well. I'm sure a lot of you will have different approaches to things as well. So that'll be an interesting discussion that I think our listeners will enjoy. So you mentioned sort of the issues we're maybe having transcontinental offices. So I guess, as well as technological things, system things that you have to focus on, probably a lot of process you have to work on as well. So I was wondering if process improvement is something that is a focus for you this year.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it kind of goes back to the comment that I made about not buying any new tech. We could just focus on, I'd like to talk about people as well. If you think about the people, process, technology, and governance aspects of a program, but on the process front, continually learning from an incident response process. When I was at Forrester, my friend and colleague John Kindervag, who many listeners will know of John. John created the Zero Trust framework, which is now in the vernacular. Everyone talks about Zero Trust. Even Gartner talks about Zero Trust, which was a Forrester concept. But one of the pieces of research that he wrote and then I took over was called Planning for Failure. And it was really about incident management and incident response. And so we're continually improving our processes around incident response. Tabletop exercises that we're going to do with the C-suite in Q1, Q2 timeframe, that sort of thing. So it's a continual evolution. We do after action reviews after every incident that we have, and we want to understand what happened, how we need to educate the workforce, actually build that into our budget proposals for the following year. Talk about, we're not going to wait until October to think about what we need to invest in. We're going to use these after action reviews that come out of our incident response process to kind of inform where we need more investment in training, where we need more investment in a technology or something along those lines. So incident response is one of those processes that we're continually improving on. I already mentioned third-party risk, in the kind of previous question that we're focused on. That will always be there. Another big one, and it's not a really exciting one, is just change management and change control, constantly evolving that. We've got a good process in place, but we want to look for ways to make it easier, faster, especially when you look at the interesting thing for me. I've been CISO for just over a year here now, and it had been 8 years since I've been a practitioner. And, when I did change management before, it was all on-prem. Now we live in a world where we have all these third-party applications that are doing changes, and how do you incorporate those in? How do you work around changes that are happening in a DevOps world as well? So that's another one. I think that change management, the incident response, third-party risk, and I would say security awareness is another one. It's an interesting topic too, because a lot of people get very cynical about security awareness training and, the stupid users. And nothing ticks me off more than victim blaming and calling people stupid users. It's our responsibility. We should be setting up transparent security that has a positive user experience for our customers, and our customers are our employees. And, it's so easy to say, the stupid user clicked on this. No, blame yourself. It's our fault for not putting the right controls in place. Now, if I put my analyst hat on, some of the tools that vendors have provided aren't as transparent as we'd like them to be, but our first place to go shouldn't be to blame the victim. And, we have found some great success in security awareness training. I realize that you're going to ramp up, and then you're going to kind of plateau out, and then you need to tailor your testing. But we invested last year in a platform for security awareness training. We've seen people self-reporting things. In fact, we've been giving out Amazon gift cards to staff when they report something that they found. Either, they challenged someone at one of our sites from a physical security perspective, or they found something else that they were reporting back, a phishing email or something along those lines. So, I've been very pleased with the progress that our security awareness program has taken. And then some of the guys, Simon is one of them on Rich Gold's team, has also been on the podcast. He comes up with these just brilliant phishing campaigns that we're doing to our team. So we've seen great success on that. But I think the key on security awareness training is realizing that it's not going to solve all the things. It's not a silver bullet. But if I can improve, just one more person that doesn't click on a link, that's going to reduce the amount of alerts that come into us, and it's going to allow our team to focus on other activities. So I see a lot of value there as well.
Yeah, on security awareness. So yes, you're a CISO, but you're also in a security company. So I suppose it's slightly different there in that maybe a higher proportion of people are security minded, and especially at the executive level. However, what if we have listeners who are in other industries, other verticals, where maybe that appetite for thinking about security first isn't necessarily there? What sort of advice would you give people interested in security and raising security awareness training in those type of organizations? I mean, is it all on the CISO shoulders to change the culture there, or can you be a bit more creative than that?
No, well, I would say Alistair, our CEO, is a huge proponent of this, and he's always reporting things, and he's very supportive in company communications about this. Really it's everybody's responsibility, but certainly senior leadership can help play a role there. I'll say Sam, who runs our client success team, she does a really good job of championing security awareness and reporting things as well. One suggestion that we started doing last year that I would recommend to people at Digital Shadows, we have a weekly all hands call. 30 minutes, quick call, talk about the highlights of the company. And about once a month, we actually stole this idea from Becky, who many people will know. Becky runs our service, essentially, the Intel team, managed services intelligence team, as well as the strategic intelligence team. But she calls it service in action every week. And basically she highlights some of the cool things that we have found with our product. Really cool phishing pages that look exactly like the legit page for our customers. And it's just really nice to see some of the things that Searchlight and Digital Shadows is finding. So we stole that idea because it's great. And so we do security in action. And so we'll highlight at the company level some of the interesting events that we have had. And that might be a phishing email that was going after the CFO or the CEO. It might be some sort of physical security event where an employee, challenged someone that came into the space, something along those lines, and kind of highlight that just so people know and make it real that, hey, these are the types of things that are happening in our threat model, in our environment. Try to connect the dots and then praise people that are reporting those things. And then of course we do our onboarding training for all of our staff, and then we have the annual training that we're doing through our security awareness platform as well. And we're highlighting the things that are actually happening to us as well to try to make it real. One area that I've always done in my career, and I talked about at Forrester as well, to try to make security awareness training resonate with people is talk about their personal lives. And how, with people that have children, if you talk about how do you kind of raise the cyber, I don't know, hygiene is kind of a dumb word. I don't know the best phrase I would use for it, but awareness is talk about to the online threats to our families and to our individuals. And that could be cyberbullying is a really good one. I have small children. My wife's a therapist, so we know a lot about the cyberbullying. So that's something that you can work into your training. Working in, everyone has all these Internet of Things devices, and what are some of the risks there? NAS devices and things getting backed up that are then going onto the internet. Now we actually find that stuff with searchlights. We find all kinds of personal information, or potentially could find lots of sensitive information out there with that service. They're highlighting that stuff, but find a way to make it real to them in their personal life, and that stuff will bleed over to their corporate life.
Yeah, I think there are some great ideas there that probably apply to all type of industries, organizations across different sectors. I mean, from my experience, I know all hands or equivalent things are something that loads of companies do. So as well as having an update on sales, on marketing, which most organizations will do, just having a little section on security as well, that tells everyone, look, we take security seriously. It's something you should take seriously as well. And that's why we're putting it in this big, wide company presentation. And the same with onboarding. Having that at the beginning, setting your stall out means from day one, people know security is something we take seriously in the organization.
Yeah, we just had a new employee that just went through, I think it was last week's training, and then received a phishing email and sent it into our reporting list. And it was a nice little win. This new hire quickly, and it wasn't a low-hanging fruit phishing email. I mean, you guys know some of the ones that are so obvious, painfully obvious. It was a little bit more sophisticated. We're like, yeah, that was a nice little win. New hire, straight off the training, reported something in. Those are the types of anecdotal stories that you like to see and share with the company.
So we shouldn't forget that as a CISO, yes, you're interested in technology, you're interested in software and hardware, but you're also in charge of people across the organization. So I was wondering, people development, what's on the agenda for that? How do you go about tackling that?
I mean, I think this is probably the most important. Well, I mean, not I think. The people aspect is the most important thing. If you think about, you have great staff, and if those staff move on for whatever reason, some people are going to move on because, it's a great opportunity. It's the next step in their long-term career progression. And that's fine. You're going to lose those sorts of people. But I think where it's really, really tough is when you lose someone that you didn't have to. People are naturally going to move on forever, and you always wish them the best, but you want to set yourself up to have as much longevity with your staff as possible. Because think about how much it costs to recruit, especially if you use an outside firm for it. That's not cheap. And then if you think, I think what's critical, and it's one of the reasons I really, really like to promote from within, is the people have that organizational knowledge, right? They know they know the business. They don't have to ramp up on that. They know the people, the hierarchy, the political structure. So it's all of those bits. So I think it's absolutely critical. And obviously, because you report up to me. So we've gone through this in the past. But for direct reports, I like to. It's something I do for myself at the beginning. I actually haven't done it this year yet. Is kind of do this self-assessment on what I want to do short term, what do I want to do long term, and this as well. I was very, I put it on there. I was like, hey, I realize that we're all not going to be at Digital Shadows the rest of our lives. So where do you want to be next? And how can I help you get there? And try to do that, and realize that, if you can get a 2 to 4 year run out of an employee, that's great. And if they move on to their next opportunity, they could still help you out with business and whatever it is that you do. So one of the things, and we didn't necessarily have this every quarter, it goes back to the framework, was trying to set up dedicated time with your staff to talk about, how do you think you're doing? How can I enable you? Who do I know in my network that can help you out? And, I certainly could have done things better last year on that. And I think we did okay with it. And it was moving the ball forward in the right direction. But I think making time for yourself, making time for your teams, directors underneath you, even, going down another level down to stay with folks and just kind of understand where they are, what they want to be, how can you help them out? Who do you know in your career that can help them out? I think that's just really, really key. It was my first real, a lot of people will complain about compliance. Certainly for the American listeners out there, they'll know Sarbanes-Oxley. I was doing IT help desk and desktop support, and Sarbanes-Oxley came around, and I was like, I don't really want to be wiping Windows XP machines anymore. And we needed somebody at my company to work with Deloitte, who was basically doing our internal audit function. And they're like, we need someone to help out with SOX. And I was like, well, sign me up. And I kind of got into the space through that component. And my CIO at the time, what he did for me is once a year, I got to go to a SANS course. And I got to go to a training session, and I really, really liked that. It was a nice retention bonus. So one of the things that I think we do a good job here on my teams is getting people to training. I mean, you got to go last year to a conference in Canada that you were very interested in, and it was aligned with your long-term career goals. And I think that was a nice thing to do. I've got different types of training that people like to do on the team, and on our security team, they get to go to some pretty advanced training. And I think that's great. It's so competitive, the market that we're in. You've got to have flexibility with staff. So I think the training is a really key component for that as well.
Yeah, and on events, I mean, what are you looking out for this year? Any big events that are on your calendar?
As far as training kind of events?
Yeah, training, or just from the CISO side.
Yeah, from CISO side. Well, I'm always interested personally in like Amazon reInvent as one example. Just for kind of ramping up, just for all the things that I mentioned, like DevOps wise. So learning more about DevOps and security into that is something that I'm interested in, from a personal perspective. We're also working through the training program that we have at Digital Shadows, company-wide kind of Digital Shadows University, in just getting better at management. Any opportunities I have to help learn to lead better and work with my teams better. So I think those are some of the things that I'm personally interested in. I mean, I'll go to, especially being a vendor, to the typical events that a lot of people will go to, right? It's RSA conference, it's Black Hat, that sort of thing. I am personally excited. SANS Threat Intelligence Summit is an annual event, and that's by the time we air this, it will have occurred. It's January 21st and 22nd, and I co-chair that event. I've been speaking at it all 7 years. I've been helping to run it with Rob Lee for the past 3 years, and that's a favorite of mine. It's a really great community. We've got a couple folks from the Digital Shadows team attending that one. So in fact, I'll do a blog after the fact and kind of report back what we saw there and observed. But that's one I always look to every year. But I think that's one that I like a lot because of the network. You think about training is great, but you also build up that network, and you're increasing the people that you know, the people that can help you. And I think that's really beneficial to people as well.
All right, Rick, it's been great having you on the podcast today. I'm sure listeners will really appreciate this episode. Some great content here that we're probably not quite used to on a lot of cybersecurity digital risk podcasts. So we'll definitely make this a regular feature. As Rick said, reaching out to any CISOs who'd be interested in joining us as well, having a broader discussion. That's something we'd really like to do over the course of this year.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and I'll talk to everyone soon.
Great. Thank you for listening.